Viktor Frankl said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way." This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson. Stay tuned for the next hour as Sue explores the human psyche, what makes us tick, and how to live better, more fulfilled and more meaningful lives. Only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program, and my topic today is answering life's call. I'm actually working from home, so there seem to be building next door, so there is a bit of noise every now and again. Just bear with me, please. Today, I would like to actually talk about the third age. Last week, Michael Seif and I spoke about the university of the third age, and I got quite a lot of feedback from people that I'd bumped into, and thank you so much for the feedback that you did give me. So today, actually, I'm not talking about the third age. I'm talking about the third act, which is 60 plus. And Picasso says it takes a long time to become young. And I rather love that because it certainly is, it's true. This last weekend, I have been very fortunate to celebrate many great days with friends, with family. And it was our anniversary, then it was my birthday, and then it was Mother's Day. And so I really had a lot to think about in that time. And one of the things that I actually really enjoyed was a message that I got from my friend Judy. I know you're listening in, probably Judy, in Australia, about a caress. Now, a caress I'd never heard about before, but Judy said to me, and it said, blessing for both you and your children and grandchildren. And she said, and in fact, for all who are lucky enough to be part of your caress. And a caress, I then looked it up from Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. And it's a group of people entwined in a cosmically significant manner. And I found this very interesting. So I did a bit of research into it, which that's what I'm inclined to do. And it said that it's a network or group of people who are somehow affiliated or linked spiritually. And I went on, and one of the things it said is if you find your life tangled up with somebody else's life for no very logical reasons, that person may be a member of your caress, K-A-R-A-S-S. And we often find such people by accident, but we stick with them by choice. On Saturday, I was at a bat mitzvah celebration at our synagogue, and I looked around. Actually, I was deliberately looking for the caresses of people. And sure enough, I saw these groups of people who had bonded together. Maybe they didn't see each other during the week, but they certainly got together on a Shabbos, on a Saturday. And about the caress is about making the world a better place, and it's a matter of choice. So it's our free will. It's not something we can stay there or we don't stay there. It doesn't matter. We can decide where we want to go. But one of the things that I actually found very interesting was the fact that we need to sometimes look at this group of people and decide what is working for us, what isn't working for us, how did they help us, and how didn't they help us? Have we helped them? It's quite an amazing thing to actually start looking at it in a spiritual manner and finding out what is it that I actually want to know about the group of people that I'm in. Now, Viktor Frankl says, there's two races of men, and only these two. The race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man, and only these two. And they are found everywhere. And we need to remember that no group consists entirely of decent or indecent people. And in this sense, no group is a pure race. And I thought about that long and hard, this not being a pure race. And I realized that in order to become the best person that we want to come, it does take courage. And in this third act of ours, sometimes it takes even more courage in this third stage of life, where we can face our own weaknesses, and look at our shadow selves. It's almost like doing a life review and saying, what have I learned in my life? Who have been in this cuirass, who have taught me what I needed to know? What are the lessons that I can take forward into my life? And what can I let go of? It's almost like a life review. You know, Jane Fonda said that she realized she'd done quite a bit of research into this, the third act, and she said she was very well into it. She maintained that longevity now is a phenomenon, because we're living 34 years longer than our great-grandparents. Now, that is quite something. And, you know, the other day, I think Michael and I were talking last week about a retirement age. And retirement age has definitely changed completely. And many people in their retirement age actually find a new hobby or something that has always been with them, but they've never had time to fulfill. And I think that is what we need to look at. We need to actually look at what are we needing to do now? And it takes courage, without doubt. And remember that courage comes from the word kur, which is heart. And there are different types of courage. There's physical courage, social courage, intellectual courage, emotional courage, and spiritual courage. And all of these are actually part of all the different stages of our lives. So not only the third act. I think when I see my grandchildren and see them going through teenage years, and I realize the struggles, and I think, oh, I'm so pleased I'm not a teenager anymore. And then I look at parents of today, and they're running around taking their children to all these different activities. And I think to myself, I'm really pleased I'm not a young parent anymore. And then I realize, actually, this is where I am. And this is where I better make the most of my life. Now, every time has its own evil, but a human being can still do good. And when we do judge the evils of past, the past, and look at the bomb on Hiroshima, Nagasaki, on the wars in Vietnam and around the world. And someone said to me once, my mom actually said to me that, you know, you're living in an age where you don't know war. And it's not true. We've known war always. I remember being in Holland in the late 1960s, very late 1960s. The Vietnam War was at its worst at the time. And there'd been many draft dodgers, which I've mentioned before, the draft dodgers from American military. And they had decided that this was not a war that they wanted to participate in. And they had left the country. And they were not allowed to go back again into America. If they did, they were going to be put into prison because they were draft dodgers. These men, it was only young men that I met. I was the same age as them. And it was really incredibly sad to hear their stories. Their stories were pure, the reason why they did not want to fight. But they were certainly not seen as pure back home in America. And they knew they couldn't go home. And a lot of them didn't have the money to actually not go home. And there they were stuck. And I've often wondered, what have they done with their lives since then? I'll be back shortly.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
was going back to the different times, and I was talking about the late 1960s. Now, when I look back on that stage, and I actually realize that those were difficult times, and we have gone through many difficult times. Look at our pandemic, look at the wars we have looked at. And lately, I often think that we just need to look at the faces of children, and will we not change our minds about what we are supposed to be doing in the world? You know, I looked at the young Israeli children running for bomb shelters. I looked at the young Palestinian children looking out. There was terror in all those children's eyes. And then you look at the children in Ukraine, you look at the children in Russia. And I really begin to wonder what is being asked of us. And we are often challenged to see what we can do. And it is in these challenges that our character emerges. It is then under these really difficult circumstances often that we attempt to find the balance between our inner and our outer beings. And many of us I know many of you listening in today, you have family overseas. Many of us have family in Israel. And what amazes me is the resilience of those people living under the circumstances that they've been living under for a long time now, to laugh, to have fun, to have freedom. And I think to myself, here we are in South Africa, behind high walls and security fences and heaven knows what else. And where is our balance? Where is our balance between our inner and our outer beings? Is it being stifled? Then I think to myself, perhaps we need to look at ourselves with compassion. Compassion is always at hand, and it's the ability to express loving kindness to ourselves and to others. And often this is what life is for, to live with others in a way that love, peace, justice may find a secure place in our hearts, no matter how trying the times may be. Craig, are you trying to tell me something? Right. Okay. Okay, thank you, Craig. Sorry, I'm on YouTube, so I couldn't see him. Craig, you're going to be putting on a YouTube shortly, but not just yet. I'd like to go back to the 3 decades of our life, and it's a special developmental stage of our lives. And how do we answer this call and see our own significance in this time in our 3rd act? Remembering the 3rd act starts at 60, and nowadays it certainly often goes way beyond 90. And in this time, Jane Fonda talks about a staircase, and how we are walking up this staircase, and it's an ascendance towards the human spirit. It's that human spirit that Viktor Frankl talks about so often. And as we go up this staircase, I like to always think of a mountain, and how as we go up a mountain, we tire often, and we have to stop and review what our path has been. What have we done up to now? And somehow, if we look back and we recognize it, yes, we have actually climbed quite a bit. We give ourselves permission to actually say, we're doing all right. And so we take the next step forward. And at this stage, as we are ascending this mountain, we look at the wisdom and the wholeness of ourselves and our authenticity. If we're even looking at an airplane taking off, look at the power that is needed to actually thrust it forward so that it can go forward. We used to think that midlife was the peak of life. Well, it's not even that anymore. Each age has a potential. But in our 3rd act, we do need to look at our life review. We are free from the past, but are we still carrying it forward? We were born, we peak, and we decline. Well, isn't that depressing? That's not what we're going to be thinking about now. It's a time of a life review, a chance to become more authentic, and to also ask, who was I? Who are the significant others in my life? Who made up my chorus? And also, how have I healed myself? Many of us come from perhaps generations of people who have suffered from depression. We've had to fight our own way back. Many people fighting illness and pain and loss. And how on earth are we supposed to heal our spirit unless we go within ourselves and look at ourselves very deeply in this life review? What can I change? Who can I forgive? How can I forgive myself? Free ourselves from self-blame. I think this is so often one of the things that keep us stuck, that we blame ourselves and for things that when we look back on this life review, actually, it wasn't only our fault. It was other people that we engaged with, other people who were in our lives, perhaps our parents, perhaps our siblings, our cousins, whatever it might be, but people who actually traveled our journey with us. We are called to actually change our relationships to the past, and in so doing, change our relationships and our understanding of ourselves. We need to often forgive ourselves for what we felt that we did wrong. We need to start forgiving others too. I read a very interesting article about what people most hold on to when they are actually at the end of their lives. What are they saying? And it was very interesting to see that so often what they actually did want to change was what they could have done. And certainly it was, the one thing was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. These were the most common regrets. That was one. This was the most common regret of all, that when people realize that their life is right in the third act and they look back clearly on it, it's easy to see how many things they hadn't fulfilled and that they haven't honored a lot of themselves and their dreams. And it's very important, no matter where we are in our lives, whether we are at the end stages of our lives or whether we are working through who we are as we go into our third act, it's very important to try and honor at least some of our dreams still along the way. Another one was, I wish I didn't work so hard. And this came from almost every male patient that I must admit that I nursed were in palliative care. They so often had missed their children's, the most important years of their children's growing up. Their school achievements, their sport achievements, just the fun of being with your own children. They had missed that and they wished that they hadn't worked so hard. There also, women spoke also of regret, but most of them, the female patients, had not been the breadwinners that I knew, whereas today it's the women have got the same regrets, that they wish that they'd spent more time at home and with their children. What about I wish I had the courage to express my feelings? In looking back, I realized that certainly the generation before me and the generation before that, my grandparents' generation, found it incredibly hard to express their feelings, and they suppressed them in order to keep the peace with others. And as a result, they never truly became who they wanted to become. And it was only later when they developed illnesses or became much older that they began to express the feelings that they wished they had expressed, and that they couldn't always control the reaction of others. Either that, or that they look at the unhealthy relationships in their lives. Now, those looking at those unhealthy relationships in our lives, when we get to the final stages of our life, is really, certainly we can still do something. But I do think that we should start looking at those much younger, perhaps from the third act, which starts at 60, and way below that. The other one is, and this I found interesting, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And often, especially in the older ages, when you have lost friends, you are inclined to wish that it had been possible to stay with your friends more. Today, in our age of social media, it is much easier to do so. We can WhatsApp, we can Zoom, we can Skype, and we can email, and it makes such a huge difference in our lives. And then also, the other one was, I wish that I had let myself be happier. Now, surprisingly, this is actually a very common one. And many people don't actually realize that happiness is a choice. And if we remain stuck in the patterns of our past, whether it's depression, whether it's our own sense of hopelessness or helplessness, or in wishing that our lives had been different, if we remain there, we actually remain unhappy. And happiness definitely is a choice. And they also laugh, a lot of people longed to laugh properly. I love that one. And that's very much what Viktor Frankl said, that even in the camps, they were able to laugh. They were able to say to themselves and to each other, they make a joke with each other, which simply helped them get through the day and get through the evilness of what they were living through. Viktor Frankl talks about the two races of men, and only these two: the race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man. And they are found everywhere. No group consists entirely of decent or indecent people. And in this sense, no group is ever a pure race. That, I think, we need to recognize again, as our world is plunged into a lot of darkness at the moment. We have to recognize that there is no pure race, and it takes moral courage to stand up for one's beliefs and to actually say, this is not how I want the world to unfold. This is not how I want myself to unfold. And who are we mixing with? Are we going to be mixing with people who believe that there is only one way in the world? I think we are being called upon to change our relationship to the past, to ourselves, and certainly to the present. We are being called upon to help our children and our grandchildren. They are the ones who are struggling in this time of constant darkness, especially with the bullying that's going on. And we are being called to actually be there, I think, to show them pure love, to show them unconditional love. Certainly, if we feel that they're doing something that is not worthy of them, we can tell them so. But our children need us. Many people who actually have said to me that they're more or less housebound now say that they have no place in their family anymore. And I found this very, very sad, because they need to look at the significant others in their lives. Often it is their children and their grandchildren. And no matter what happens, they can change their attitude towards them. Start showing more compassion, more understanding, perhaps stop complaining so much, and recognize that we are still needed. There's a lot of healing that needs to be taken in ourselves, certainly. And that is one of the first steps, as I said, the self-blame. And that self-blame can often come out in aggression towards others. I actually love the lyrics of that song that Whitney Houston sang, Greatest Love of All. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. And it then goes on to say, everybody is searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. A lonely place to be if you haven't found anyone. And so I learned to depend on me. It goes on, and it's just so beautiful, those lyrics. It says so much about who we are and what our children are actually going through. Going back to our third act, there is the transitory nature of life. And Viktor Frankl talks about the tragic triad, which is the pain, the guilt, and the death. And that's part of the transitory nature of life, the ever-changing nature of life. And you are a human being. We all are. We are not a human doing. There is never a time of an absence of meaning. There's never a time of stagnation. There is only a time of new growth, which is characterized by redefining our goals. As an older person, this is often what needs to be done as we review our lives. What are the goals that we feel that we can still accomplish? Our human spirit remains strong. Remember that mountain climb, that ascension towards the strength of the human spirit. All the time, holding on to that, taking a stand, even in suffering. From within this tragic triad, the guilt, the pain, the death, we can take a stand in the suffering. From guilt, we can change ourselves. Where are we to blame? Are we blaming ourselves senselessly if we feel that we hadn't fulfilled a part in our children's lives? Well, you know what? We need to begin to forgive ourselves to become the person we were destined to become. Thank you, Craig.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
This is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program, and we're now going to be listening to a very short talk, which is by Brené Brown on ultimate betrayal. Thank you, Craig.
And there's this part from Braving the Wilderness that it really changed me. It's the practice that came from the book, and it is, don't walk through the world looking for evidence that you don't belong, because you will always find it.
Yes.
Don't walk through the world looking for evidence that you're not enough, because you'll always find it. Our worth and our belonging are not negotiated with other people. We carry those inside of our hearts. And so for me, I know who I am. I'm clear about that. And I'm not going to negotiate that with you. I will negotiate a contract with you. I will negotiate maybe even a topic with you, but I'm not going to negotiate who I am with you. Because then, and this is, I think, the heart of the book, then I may fit in for you, but I no longer belong to myself. And that is a betrayal I am not willing to do anymore. I spent the first 30 years of my life doing that. I'm not willing to betray myself anymore to fit in with you. I just can't do it.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, you were just listening to Brene Brown, and she was talking about ultimate betrayal. And she said there are a number of negotiations that we make throughout the day, and there are a number of compromises that we will make throughout our lives. Then she says there are some things that you should not negotiate. And obviously, this may differ from person to person, but she says she believes that there is one universal one, and that is that you're not going to negotiate who you are. You don't walk through the world looking for evidence that you don't belong. And would you need to, and how can you fit in? This is a lot of what our young teenagers are trying to do. Fit in with, and they're not feeling comfortable with themselves. All of us need to look at our worth and realize that our worth is not negotiable, not at all. I was talking about the tragic triad, but the other thing that I wanted to say that Viktor Frankl also said that from guilt in this tragic triad, the guilt, the pain, the death, take a stand even in suffering. This human spirit is our spiritual core, and it remains strong. From guilt, we can change ourselves, as I said. Whatever we have done wrong, we can look at how we can rectify. If we can't rectify it, we need to also stop blaming ourselves. Look at what made us behave as we did at the time. What were the circumstances of our life? Are we in our 70s, late 60s, 70s, 80s, still blaming on ourselves for something that we did in our 20s when we were much younger, perhaps not as wise as we are today? We need to forgive ourselves. Why carry that guilt for our lives? In this transitory nature of life, we have the opportunity always to make attitudinal changes and become responsible for our own lives now. What are the choices that we want to make now to become the best version of ourselves? Viktor Frankl often spoke about the stubble fields of the past, that's what we look at. We don't look at the full granaries of our past, of the good deeds we've done, the good things that fill those granaries. Instead, we look at the emptiness. Now, nobody's life is totally empty. We need to look at what actually fills our granaries and accept it and actually celebrate that. There is that wonderful story of the two wolves. I'm just looking for it because I actually wrote it down and I loved it. Let me find it because I want to go through it with you. It's a story of the true wolves. It's from the Cherokee tribe, and it's a Cherokee story. And the story goes, there's a story of two wolves in Cherokee culture in which a grandfather teaches his grandson an important life lesson. The grandfather tells his grandson that there's a battle going on inside of us, a battle between two wolves that live inside us. And the grandson says, which wolf wins? And the grandfather goes on to say, my son, the battle is between two wolves that live inside all of us. One is evil. It is fear, anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. They all are battling with the other side, which is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The grandson thinks really long and hard about this, and he asks again, but Grandpa, which wolf wins? And the grandfather replies, the one you feed. So this story of the two wolves teaches us that our future, our destiny, is in our control. It's up to us to feed our courage, to choose how we want to face the world, and to feed our mind. Do we want to feed our mind with joy, with peace, with love, with hope, serenity? Or do we want to stick to the jealousy, the sorrow, the regret, the greed? I love the story of these two wolves, and we deal with fear every day. And the fear that we do deal with tries to control us, to prevent us from fully living our lives. And we allow ourselves often to live with this fear. Just hang on, my computer, I'm not hearing Craig clearly, so we go, okay. We are going to an ad break.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back again on the High FM program 101.9. If you'd like to SMS me, please do so on 34519, or you could telegram me on 061 895 1019. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know if you actually are agreeing with this, our third act, our third age. And if you're younger, the problems you feel that are hitting you, that perhaps you feel that as you get older, they're not going to be there. You're now going to be listening to a short talk by Michael Singer and Oprah Winfrey, and it's called Remove Your Inner Thorn.
My other favorite chapter of my new favorite book, The Untethered Soul, is removing your inner thorn. We all have them, right?
Yes, we do.
Do you still have some thorns?
Of course.
You do? Okay. The spiritual journey is about constant transformation. So you were saying, imagine, can you just do this for our audience, that whole passage on imagining you have a thorn in your arm that directly touches a nerve. Can you do that?
So the analogy we were using is, if you had a thorn that was touching directly to a nerve, so much so that anything that touched it caused pain inside of you. So if you walked, to walk through the woods and the leaf touched it, you weren't able to walk. If you were trying to interact with people, it caused a disturbance. And the key point of it is you have two choices. One is you can either try to avoid everything in your life that touches that thorn,
right,
or you can do this amazing alternative, which is take it out. All right? If you try to avoid it, you will be avoiding it for your entire life. It will go on constantly.
Which is what we're all doing, right?
Yes, it is.
We're all doing. We got our thorns in, and we don't want anybody to touch them.
Yes.
And if they touch them and they irritate our little thorn, we're upset because you shouldn't have touched my thorn.
Yes.
That's the whole.
And that's the game that we play, is how do I build a life that avoids touching all this stuff that happened to me that I can't handle. When they happened, I couldn't handle it. And now it's caused all these soft spots inside of me.
Thorns.
So I need to create a life, train everybody around me, all right, so they don't ever touch
Avoid my
that.
thorn. Some people even say that. Don't you go there with me.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Exactly
yeah.
right. The alternative is to understand you can remove that thorn inside of you the same as you can remove it outside. And if you remove it, you will never have to think about it again, and you can start to enjoy your entire life. And that is spirituality.
That is spirituality. Now, how do you know what your thorn is?
Disturbance tells you. Just like pain happens when you hit the thorn outside,
yes,
disturbance happens inside.
Because it's never what is actually happening.
Right.
It's what is happening is irritating your thorn.
It was put in there before.
That's
very good.
That's good. That's good.
So those events will show you.
That's good. Y'all get that? That's really good. So even when you see your husband leaves the, drawers open or the whatever open or the left, it's not about what's going on.
Right.
It's about the thorn that was there.
Yes.
So, okay, how do we then begin to remove the thorns? That's
Right.
the spiritual journey, is it not?
Yes, it is. When something hits it, you will feel a disturbance pop up inside of you, right? And you have to choose right then, what are you going to do about that?
Okay, so, and by something hitting it, meaning you're in a conversation, you're in your office, somebody says something, it hits a nerve, you think they have disrespected
Yes,
you,
whatever.
they have stepped out of bounds, they shouldn't have said that, your boss did something, your child did something. That's the nerve. But what's the difference between that and they really did do something?
The difference is you always start with saying, do I want to be disturbed? Do I like being disturbed? No, I don't like being disturbed. So I have a choice. An event happened outside. I can deal with that event without being disturbed. In fact, I can promise you I can deal with it better without being disturbed. Disturbance isn't helping you. Disturbance is hurting you.
Got it.
And so you are way better off learning how to deal with the disturbance. And that is also how you remove the thorn. They are directly related. The fact that the situation outside stimulated this disturbance inside of you means that you've uncovered something stored inside of you that needs to come out.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program. And I was talking about the two wolves. What I would like to just say that those two wolves, we have to decide which one we are going to feed. And we have to show compassion to ourselves, forgive ourselves, talk positively to ourselves, because we are going to feed the best wolf in us, the wolf of kindness, of healing. The fear wolf resides in our minds. The courage wolf resides in our hearts. And that's what we need to know. The courage wolf and the Hebrew wolf resides in every one of us, but we can choose which one we feed. I'm being told to wrap up, and I'd like to just say that if you didn't hear me properly, because I couldn't hear, so I'm hoping you did. And I just want to end with this. Whatever you do, you need courage. Whatever course you decide upon, there is always someone to tell you that you are wrong. There are always difficulties arising that tempt you to believe your critics are right. This is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. So our mission in life is to find the path that moves us forward, that feeds our spirit. Thank you so much, and I'll be with you next week. Thank you, Craig.